All right, we almost like we're in the midst of this NBA Finals right now, but that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're talking about is the upcoming NBA draft, and the Washington Wizards have the number one pick right now, and the top pick right now that everybody has AJ DeBonsa, and I'm going to say right now between him and Peterson, I do think it's a compelling argument because Peterson, I think even like we just didn't get to really see him. He was hurt, cramping, whatever it might be. That I think that we sort of didn't get to see what the full on ability he has. But I will say that in the game that he played, I was like he was scoring in the time that he was in there and fairly quickly. And also, like, if you want, I was like watching the game of when it was like the Bonsa and Peterson, because they showed a couple of their matchups and stuff like that when they was before they got into college, and they're both are great, like they really are. But the Bonsa, I was like, I do think that he has a different level of to him, but that does not mean that necessarily that he will be better or greater than Peterson either. So that's sort of how it goes or whatever like that. But I was like, I do think there's an element there that I was like, he has that just sort of seems like he's one of those. You know what he sort of reminds me of? He makes me think of like those characters. I was like those players, especially like early on 2K games, where you can tell there was something extra that was installed in the game where it felt like this player was a little bit of a glitch where it's like, okay, he's too crazy in the game. You know, I was like, my comp for the Bonsa is T Mac. I was like T Mac with one of these people. I was like, I was like, I was like LeBron could have. I was like with one of these people. Like it was like people who was like, what I can't beat. Like the way he does dunks and stuff in the game, where I was like, that just looks too fluid or whatever. But Peterson scores really proficiently and stuff like that. My comp for him is Kawhi Leonard. Um, Neither here nor there. This is going back to who we were talking about, the Washington Wizards. Now everybody's like, "Hey, he's the number one pick. Washington's going to." I was like, "Take him. Why not take him, or whatever?" But there was this other team that really seemed like they wanted AJ a lot, and that would be the Utah Jazz. And it makes sense. I was like, "Hey, basically, I believe the owner or so like that, for basically had like put the boss on with high school, got him to BYU, and the whole thing was, hey, we basically to get him into Utah. He been staying in Utah for a long time, and people just don't be in Utah for no reason. So I was like, that's what everybody wants to think. And it seems right now everybody's just thinking like, hey, it's going to just stay packed. I was like, hey, you can't go wrong with DeBonsa or Peterson either way. So the Jazz getting Peterson will be fine. And while I was like, I know at the very beginning, once the draft sort of lottery, I was like hit. There was like speculation. Nobody else has really talked about it since then. But basically, Wizards trading to Utah. And I think Washington should do it. I think they should go ahead and do it. And I can understand that people are saying, especially if you are the few 12 people that are Washington Wizard fans, that are like, hey, no, let's draft the top guy. I was like, don't overthink it. Except for I was like, they've been sort of nip and tuck until this year with the injuries. So who's to say that it's still not nip and tuck? And even though I think the Bonsa is a little bit better than Peterson, I can also see the case that you would also go for Peterson. And to me, this is really more so about if is the fact that if they're that close, and because in most drafts you don't really have a one and a two that's could be alternate for the most part. You pretty much have like one person that everybody knows like number one, and or you have a whole bunch of who's going to be number one. Outside of like the Paulo Jalen Smith one, where it was like rumors of like them going back and forth, but then it being Paulo, and then it sort of seemed like, oh no, that seemed like that should be like the number one pick. Most of them just fall in the other two categories. There's really not really much of a like surprise. I know Anthony Bennett was like a surprise that year, but that's really because there was really no everybody else was not also that great either. So that being said, to me, if they're that close and they sort of both hit the same spot that the Wizards sort of need. I was like, you need a franchise guy. They both sort of played two. I would like the two. They both could score really well. There, I was like, they could play. I would like defense. I think Peters is better at defense, but I was like, and stuff like that to me, go ahead and trade with Utah and take everything that Utah has. Now, I know that with that being you thinking like take everything that Utah has, they're not in the mode of tanking anymore. They're not doing this. I was like, they got a crew that should next year be basically, if not in the playoffs, but basically in the playoff hunt. I was like Keyshawn George. I was like Ace Bailey or whoever they pick number 1, 2 going to be at that spot. I was like, you got Laurie Marketing, JJ Jackson. I was like, my JJ Jackson. I was like Jaren Jackson, and you got Kessel Walker if they retain him. Solid lineup. I was like I said, should be in the play-in playoffs, that whole thing. So if you get picks by them, hey, it's gonna seem like, hey, they're gonna be low anyway. Who cares? Picks, take them. And I know they got the draft pick. They changed the lottery, but guess what? Utah's not expected to be there anymore. So I was like, they're not going to have a top pick. You also don't have to worry about those rules really affecting you in that same type of way. Washington, they're making a play to try to be in the playoffs with Trae Young, Anthony Davis. I would like you're hoping Sarr develops a little bit more and this draft pick. That they're not planning to be tanking either. So they're expecting to try to be in the play-in playoff next year as well too. So guess what? The rules really don't matter again for y'all. I was like, and I know it's like, hey, I know somebody was talking about like, oh, they're going to be a little bit harder to trade draft picks now because of these rules. And I think not really, because a lot of teams don't really try to tank for this year on this draft. And that really was the whole thing. It was the Victor Wembanyama draft, and it was this one that people have been trying to tank for. After I was like, I haven't heard. I was like, look, I don't know about next year, but it doesn't seem like they're anything hyping that one. So I was like, I think those are outliers on the crazy amount of tanking that's been in. Because there's always been tanking, but the crazy way that's been tanking. But the reason I say that they should do it and take all the draft picks and stuff like that and take everything that Utah has, because Utah does have a collection of draft picks they've been hoarding around. They've been trying to do like the OKC thing. Is you don't know how this Trae Young thing is going to work. You definitely don't know how this Anthony Davis thing going to work. You're going to have either DeBonsa or Peterson, so you're going to have a foundational piece to build around. But I was like, having the draft picks, even if I was like, it's not really the whole idea that you hope that they land in the top or whatever. What you need to have is ammunition. You need to have enough around you that you can be like OKC. Because the thing that's great about OKC is that they have their star player is Shea. And while they have like Dub or Chet or whatever like that, I was like, you're going to have to sign these big contracts. Aprons is going to hurt that as well too. That when it's time to either trade these guys or sign somebody to a big contract that you might not want to sign to and all these other things. Maybe they're young and you need a veteran. Whatever it is, you need draft picks in order to make a lot of this stuff work, especially because the money is you have to have it exactly match up. So that means you can't just be throwing extra players in there anymore. You need compensation as well. So you getting draft picks from Utah, and that's a whole mess of slew of whatever they got, helps you build around whoever this new foundational piece is going to be. And I think helps with that. I would like accelerates that. Helps you maybe like move off of like, say they sign Trae Young to a bigger long contract. Guess what? I would like maybe in like 2 years you're tired of it. Maybe you need to swing the pot. Maybe you need a draft pick to do something like that. I don't know. Who knows? That's what I'm saying. I was like, maybe you trade for somebody else, and I was like, oh, like let's hurry up and let's speed this up. And then it's like that's not working. We got to use a draft pick to sort of get this dude off our books that we thought might have been a piece or whatever. You don't ever know. But the thing is, the draft picks help. Everything helps in this situation. And if Utah's going to give you that to get their golden guy, then go ahead and do it. You're getting somebody else that is going to be of the same ilk anyway. I was like, barring an injury or something like that, if that's your biggest worry, then I was like, just deal with that. But even then, I was like, if something like that happens, you have the draft capital to at least sort of make some moves. And that's what I'm sort of saying is that you have the flexibility that, hey, I was like, you were able to add more people to the team, whether that's younger players because you use the draft picks or you use the draft picks to get in veterans or other people to help around this cause or whatever that is. So I was like, I think that if it's close between AJ and Peterson, go ahead and trade them to Utah and take Utah for whatever they're willing to really give you. And I will try to take a lot from them in this situation just because y'all want them way more than what we do because of what you feel like he owes to you and the investment you place into him. Anyway, let me know what y'all all think about that idea. Don't think it's too crazy, but hey, I might be wilding. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. Peace. I'm out.